All right, everybody. So, welcome to part two of our Friday Locked On Summer road trip and our discussion with the fellas over at Locked On Detroit Red Wings. Hopefully, you listened to part one. If you haven't done that, just rewind a little bit, go to the show that's below this, listen to part one. This is part two. Like we said, there's obviously a lot to talk about when you get these two teams and these two fan bases together. So, we wrapped up part one. Here is part two. Enjoy it. We'll jump right into it. And thank you for everybody for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day right here on Locked On Avalanche. But you guys are there is one Red Wings hockey jersey in my home. It belongs to my wife because she loves Ferris Bueller. And
nice.
He's got, so she has that jersey just because of that. There might be a second one coming, and the people that listen to our show every day, they're probably going to be annoyed with me bringing up Shane Gostisbehere again because he's just like my favorite player for a reason. He went to college where I grew up at Union College in Schenectady, New York, right? So I've just followed him around, and I have his jerseys for every team that he's gone to.
Wow.
I can't stop the train right now. So there might be, I'll just say it's my wife's. I'll just say it's her. But talk about that. Like I know it wasn't going to happen that he was coming to the Avalanche, but I just, in the back of my head, I just want him to maybe just 1 year come to the Avalanche so I can get an Avalanche Shane Gostisbehere jersey. You guys nabbed him. Another great move. Thoughts on him? Where's he fit in with you guys?
I mean, we're pumped. For Brian and I, we did when we did our free agency recap. I can't remember if you agreed or if you picked someone else, Brian, just for the sake of picking someone else. But we were pretty lockstep in this is our favorite signing of the entire offseason. Genuinely, I mean, this dude is a legitimate, kind of quarterback defensively. That's not a liability, defensively either. Yeah, it's funny because I also have weirdly really like Ghost for his entire career. I really like that Phillies team that he came up on and debuted with for whatever reason. I really liked them, and so seeing him bounce around and his Philly career was obviously a roller coaster of ups and downs. But we're thrilled. We're absolutely thrilled about it, and it's a kind of a mutually beneficial, both parties thing. He gets a 1-year deal. Good AAV, but he gets a 1-year deal in a system where he is going to have the ability to drive the offense literally whenever he's on the ice. I mean, because he's not going to be he's not going to be paired with Sider or Wallman. So he's going to be the quarterback on the blue line whenever he's on the ice and have a chance to have a really big year, I think. And then he'll be a free agent in a way better free agent class on top of that. And he can go out and truly get kind of a long-term, find your next home, a real bag. I think it's really beneficial for both sides. But yeah, we're very, very excited for Ghost to be in the winged wheel for sure.
It definitely took me off guard. It was a signing I was not expecting, but once I dug into it, I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, he is a left-handed shot, but the Red Wings desperately needed right side D-men, and across his career, he has about 50% deployment at 5-on-5 on the right side. So we pretty much presume he will be a right side D-man with the Detroit Red Wings. Red Wings desperately need special teams help. He's great on the power play, so he'll probably be playing power play 1 or power play 2, just feeding DeBrincat on the wing or Perron on the wing for one-timers. So I think that it makes a lot of sense. And like Scotty says, it makes sense for Gostisbehere too on a 1-year deal, because if the Red Wings suck, you trade him at the deadline to a contender and you get assets back in the return. If he's great and the Red Wings are in the contention, extend him. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of flexibility. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense for a guy who's really rejuvenated his career in recent seasons. And I mean, the Red Wings, as great as Sider and Wallman have turned out to be, they definitely needed more of an offensive punch, especially after trading Hronek away.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So what you're saying is next year, when the Avalanche pick up a rehab Ghost Bear, we're going to be talking about Ghost Bear like we just talked about Darren Helm, and Chris is going to be extremely happy.
Yes,
exactly. Okay, all right. And I do want to ask about Yamamoto, because you did make a deal for him, and then they just didn't they decided not to sign him. Why? I mean, you have enough cap space, obviously. What was the reason to not bring him in and keep him?
Well, the prevailing theory is that taking on Yamamoto's contract was the price that the Red Wings paid to get Klim Kostin. That Klim Kostin is actually the player that Detroit Red Wings wanted, which is funny because he was an RFA headed to Russia. So, I mean, yes, the Edmonton Oilers had the rights to him. I guess the Red Wings see something in Klim Kostin that is kind of like a diamond in the rough situation, and he would have an opportunity with Detroit. I mean, he's a big winger. So the Red Wings could use a couple more big wingers. But when it comes to Yamamoto, I thought it made sense to kind of take a flyer on a guy, but they do have a lot of wingers already. So it might have just come down to roster size, especially with prospects pushing. With Yamamoto's age, buying his contract out is only going to cost him $500,000 for 2 years. So it's not like it's going to really hurt them. So I think it really just comes down to the Red Wings wanted Klim Kostin. Ken Holland said, okay, take Yamamoto too, because they only gave up cash considerations or future considerations.
So. Yeah.
So they were just like, okay, we'll take Yamamoto and then we'll decide if we want him or not. And they're like, no, we got enough guys.
And did he go back to Edmonton, or he's nowhere
Seattle.
Right now? Seattle, you're right. Yes, Seattle. That was a pretty good pick. And another guy that I was wanting the Avalanche to look into, Daniel Sprong.
Too.
Yeah.
That was another guy. It's just all the guys that I wanted just said, no, we're going to freezing cold Michigan. Not that freezing cold Colorado's any better, but
so like that's like we signed 10 people and made a trade. God. So like it's I mean that really was the majority. we were overwhelmed as well.
Yeah.
Active day. It was an active couple days.
I mean, the offseason is supposed to be slow for most. Content for you guys was not a problem.
You should have seen my reaction when they signed a second goalie. I was like, what are we doing? What is happening? Why did we sign 2 goalies?
Wow. So, I mean, overall, though, like so far, very good offseason for the Red Wings. I hate to throw a prediction your way. We're in July. If you had to tell me right now they make the playoffs, I know what you said about they got to be there. You can't be, can have another year where you're eliminated in the last week. You're going up these steps, right? And you're gradually going up the steps. And the next step is playoffs. Do they get there? Do you feel confident saying right now that they can clinch one?
So I am going to go with yes, partially just because it's July and I'm choosing to be optimistic.
Sure.
But I think, I mean, like when I break down like the Red Wings path to get to the playoffs in our insane division, it's going to need to come at the expense of like, obviously the 4 or 5 teams above us the last several years to take steps down. And I think there's legitimately, while I'm not saying they're not playoff teams anymore, there is a path for a solid 3 of those teams at least to take somewhat of a step back. And again, that's not saying that they're going to be like 70-point teams or anything, but I do think it's feasible for the Lightning. They've kind of been on a ever so slow, like, a couple of points shaved off every year. Boston certainly isn't going to have 135 again. I guess we say that every year and then they do. So like, maybe I shouldn't say that out loud, but like they like certainly can't repeat their season last year. Toronto is just in crazy turmoil. Like who really knows what they're going to be good, but like who really knows on a consistent basis what they're going to be, at come the trade deadline and all that. I don't know. I don't think it's ridiculous for all of those teams plus Ottawa to be either where they were last year or like, a few wins worse to the Red Wings to get them over the hump kind of a thing.
Yeah, I can't see Ottawa being too much better than they were last season. I don't think they've done enough this offseason to really take them over the top. I know they obviously finished ahead of the Red Wings last year and beat the Red Wings up on back-to-back occasions. But I mean, the Red Wings, if they want to make the playoffs, they have to have a Buffalo type season. I know Buffalo also missed the playoffs by 1 singular point, but they last season jumped like 20 points from the season prior. They got to make that leap. But if you're asking me right now in July, do I think they make the playoffs? I think they do as wild card too. And the reason I'm saying yes is because how much longer do we kick the can down the road? Yeah. Like it's got to be at some point you got to just go for it. And I think all of the acquisitions that Yzerman made this offseason, he addressed goal scoring, defense, center depth, goalie depth. I think that while some of that is maybe putting Band-Aids on roster spots until the young guys are ready, they weren't just like signing anybody like he used to. He would sign guys who actually can play competitive NHL minutes, like a JT Compher. 2 years ago, he signed Pius Suter. That's a Band-Aid player. I can't believe he's still unsigned, by the way, because he's a fantastic depth center, defensive.
It's great.
Yeah.
I have no clue why he's not on a team.
Yeah, that is a strange one. Yep.
2 years ago, Pius Suter was our 2C. He is not a 2C. He is a 4C. This year, he signed JT Compher, which you guys said can play up to 2C, 3C at the, but like he's signing guys and making the team better. So I guess my point is like, yes, because it's time. It's time to finally make some noise.
Yep. And we have 2 months and some change before the season starts. You guys could make 10 more moves in another goalie signing if you want to between now and then.
Travis,
certainly another goalie. Can't have too many of those. You know, we're really big on goalies this offseason for
2 months and $7 million.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I know we're not trying to make this an hour-long show or anything, but I mean, we talked earlier, to throw it back to you guys a little bit. Yeah. Last year was obviously, like, I don't even say this to like salt in the wound, like genuinely one of the most injury riddled teams I think I've seen in professional sports, like in recent memory, like in all 4 sports, legitimately. And so I'm wondering if the mindset is like, oh, like not like a punt year last year, but like, oh, like we still know what we are when everyone's fully healthy. Last year was last year. We're kind of over it, whatever. Let's try to get healthy and make this year like we're going to go back to what 2 years ago was, or was there like a more of a mindset shift, I guess, during this offseason?
Oh, there was a shift this offseason for sure. And we saw it coming, not just because of how they played last year and how the season finished, with the first round exit against Seattle. Just because when you looked at their roster, they had so many guys that were going to be unrestricted free agents. So you knew it was going to be like a changing of the guard, where the year before that, they brought almost everybody back for that Stanley Cup year. And Joe Sakic even said, we need to get a little bit grittier. And it really hasn't been their style of play, is to be this, forceful team. But that doesn't mean you just ignore that altogether. And I think they did. They went down that road, but it's never going to be their forte to be this team that's just going to go out and pound on you, right? They're going to beat you with their speed. They're going to beat you with skill and scoring ability. They just didn't want to get beat up as much as they were. So they went out and they got a little bit beefier, and that's where they're at. But I think last year was not just we'll throw in the towel because we'll just use the injuries as an excuse. You can't do that when you go out and win the division. If you still made the playoffs, but as like the 3rd seed or a wild card because of all the injuries, then you can say like, hey, we gave it the college try. It just didn't work out. But no, like you still overcame all that, number 1 team in your division, and then just fell completely flat in the playoffs. Completely flat. Like nothing was going right. Give Seattle a ton of credit for that. But Avalanche were not playing their game. So they did. They needed to make some changes. They have. I think they're good changes. I don't think they're fantastic changes, but they don't need to do that. When you have guys like Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, you just need to make these little adjustments here and there. And I think that's exactly what they've done.
And you could see the year the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup, they were the best team in the league because of the skill that they had. And that's what took them to that spot. And of course, Darren Helm and players like that stepping up in key moments. But then you look to last year, Vegas, they were built for a wire-to-wire season. And you could see teams like Boston falling out in the playoffs. Nobody thought that would be possible. Then you see Florida get to the Cup and fall completely apart because they just weren't built to last. And like Chris mentioned, this team going a more grittier style, it's not more of a grittier play. The Colorado Avalanche are built more to last this season. If they endure an injury, it's more of that next man up, a more physical player that also provides skill. So it's a little bit of a shift in the focus on the way the Colorado Avalanche are going to play, but you still have Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar, and that's enough to carry you to where they want to be.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I guess
Absolutely.
to reiterate, Scott, we don't want to make this like an hour-long show, but I do
Oh,
want
we're breaking this up. We're breaking this one up.
I do want. I'm gonna just post the full thing. My fans are gonna have a field day on a Friday. My question is like, how big of a worry is Gabriel Landeskog's future? Because I know he missed a huge chunk of last offseason and had some injuries, and now there's questions about whether or not he'll even come back and play another NHL game. And I mean, at the time you guys drafted him and made him captain, he was the youngest captain in NHL history. I remember that was a big deal. I was kind of salty because I think at the time it was still Yzerman until Landeskog was named captain, if I'm remembering correctly.
For the youngest, it might have been.
Might have been. I can't remember.
Been.
I was in high school when it happened, so my memory fails me. But I mean, and here you are, and it's like he didn't play the bulk of last season, and that's. I mean, I know you guys have Makar and McKinnon, but he's just as much as the face of the organization as serving as the captain.
Oh yeah, that is the $1 million question right now, and I think Avalanche fans are in the mindset of we won't be doom and gloom until we have to, and you don't really know right now, and this surgery that he's had done, apparently nobody, at least in the NBA, nobody's ever come back from this. He feels confident that he can, and he's going to say that right now. But overall, we don't know. We don't know. It's kind of scary. I've been on record to say, like, I think he will return. Will it be for a good solid career to end and have many years after he returns? That remains to be seen. I think he will at least come back, try to make a go of it, and then we'll see what happens. I don't know. Oh, Kyle, your mic ain't working, but fix that so I can keep talking about Gabe Landeskog all day long. Now, he actually reached out to when it was at Lonzo Ball. I think Lonzo Ball's had this same exact surgery for the Bulls, and they've ruled him out, I think, for next year.
He hasn't played in after it's going to be like 2+ years since he stepped on a basketball court.
I don't know
when he runs on a treadmill, he looks,
bad.
Awful.
Really? I don't know when he had that surgery done.
I don't know either.
But Landeskog just had this one maybe like a couple months ago. This was like the last ditch effort to like try to get this thing fixed.
Sure.
And we know how that happened. Like, do you guys know why he has this knee injury? It's because of Cale Makar.
Oh,
really?
Cale Makar got hit and his skate kind of went up and went right over his knee. So we're not blaming Cale Makar. Like,
no, of course.
We all love Cale Makar, and he got hit. It was just a fluky thing, but that's the reason we're in this situation.
That's horrible. A horrible way for that to happen. I think Ben Sherratt was responsible for breaking Tyler Bertuzzi's hand earlier in the season too. Took a slap shot from the point and hit him. So it happens.
Yeah, I love how Chris was also mentioning that he's got this optimism and that it's him with the optimism.
Kyle doesn't.
I don't believe, because let's be honest, we're all in the hockey world. 2 years off of that training to get back into the NHL game, and not just to come back, but to also come back to a captaincy role. Like that, there's a lot that you have to get up to that level. And he's a family man now. He's got young kids. And when it comes to going into what will be year 3 since he's played hockey, does he want to go through that grind? Does he want to get to not just hockey level, not just get out there and let's have a catch? No, he wants to get out there and play NHL level hockey. That's going to be a tall task. And I don't know if Landeskog, when he gets to that moment, is going to say, yeah, I can do this. I think he's going to say, you know what? I tried. I've done everything I possibly could. That's why we went with this surgery. And I just can't perform at an NHL level. And then that's where the baton is passed.
Yeah, being a Broncos fan, I always so far I've been comparing this to the Terrell Davis knee injury.
Sure.
And tried to come back and did. He played a couple games here and there, but it would always cause him to miss another game. And then eventually he just had to be like, I can't do this. I can't keep playing this way. Is that where we're headed with Landeskog? We don't know yet. But we are. Kyle and I are on different roads of this right now. I'm hoping Kyle is already going to hang his number in the rafters.
Just preparing everybody. Just
Right
preparing.
next to Ray Bork.
Is there going to be, like, as far as divvying out like letters, like, is there already a conversation about like what the future of that is, or are people like, we're not talking about that till it's like,
Yeah.
like,
Well, what the future of it is talked about. It's likely not going to happen just for this year while Landeskog's
Of
out,
course.
just as a holdover. But it is a fun conversation to have, like to say, like, if he does hang him up, or whoever the next captain will be, because they have a handful of guys that it could be.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I'm on the Nathan McKinnon side. A lot of people are on the Cale Makar side. Some people are even throwing out, hey, by the time that Landeskog does retire, Bo Byram might be a guy that is thrown out there. So they have options, and it's kind of a fun discussion to have. But for this year, no, it's not going to happen.
I just feel like McKinnon might be a little bit too crazy to be.
You are not the only one to say that, and that's the main reason for the people who think it should be Makar, is because McKinnon's kind of like a hothead, and can he really get people?
Well, just like his off-ice regimen too, it's like he holds himself to such a high standard.
That's why it's going to Devon Toews.
Devon Toews,
he could be
a really good player.
Could be another one if he sticks around. That's a big if for this next offseason, if they can get him signed. So
he really blossomed in the last few years.
Oh man, that is. I mean, everybody wants to turn to the Matt Duchene trade as one of the best trades in the franchise history, and it's definitely one of them. The simple 2 second-round draft picks for Devon Toews is also looking like one of the best ones that they've ever made too. So it's been fun to watch these guys work, and now it's Chris McFarland who's kind of stepped into the role instead of Joe Sakic, and I think is pretty much just picked up where Sakic left off. He does methodical moves. He doesn't go after the big names just because they're names. He goes for the guys that they have a system, and they want guys, and they have a system, and they have a kind of like what you guys were saying with Yzerman, who they look at, the makeup of the guy, and they want good, high character guys, and that's who they bring in. So far it's been working. So yeah, man. I think we should wrap it up right there. I think that'll just about do it. But this was good stuff, man. So good luck for this season. I'm sure we will link up maybe at some point during the season, maybe halfway point, see where we are with things and how things are going. So why don't you guys throw out where people can follow you guys?
At Brian Fisher, WWJ. WWJ is the radio station I work for. And our Locked On Twitter account is at LO_Red Wings. And Scotty?
My Twitter is at Bentley Scotty. That's the Red Wings Twitter. And yeah, if you're randomly an Avalanche Detroit Tigers fan, you can find that Twitter of it's at Locked On Tigers. So there you go.
I mean, Kyle is an Avalanche Braves fan, so that's an odd combination.
Interesting.
So there probably
there's a lot of like Braves and Cubs because of the TV deals in the 90s and 2000s.
Yes.
There's a lot of those kind of implants around though.
And if any of your Red Wing fans want to follow us over in Avalanche land, follow the show on Twitter.
There probably will be some.
Yeah. We welcome them. I've had some good conversations with Red Wings fans. Yeah. LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter. Locked On Avalanche on Instagram, obviously, as well. Kyle has his own Twitter page.
That's right. You can follow me at Shaggy Von Doom.
Shaggy Von Doom. All right, guys. Thanks for doing this. We'll check in with you guys before the season starts and during as well. So
perfect.
Sounds good.
Thanks, all right, man. Guys. Thank everybody for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Greatly appreciated. Enjoy the weekend. See you guys next week.